Hello, and welcome to the Tuscola Community High School class of 1961. I'm your host. I'm Maury Reese, TCHS class of 1962. So I was a junior in 1961. This was my picture in the yearbook. Look at that lovely dark hair. Because, my friends, over the next 6 decades, that hair disappeared. John F. Kennedy was president in 1961. The top movie of the year was West Side Story. The top song of the year was Tossin' and a Turnin' by Bobby Lewis. The most popular singer was 26-year-old Elvis Presley. The top TV show was Wagon Train. It finally edged out Gunsmoke. This is what the cars looked like that year. And remember, back then, the new cars were always introduced in October, all at the same time. Tail fins were still evident, at least on the Cadillacs. The average annual salary for a man was $5,700. Gasoline was a mere 31 cents a gallon. A new car cost about $2,850. A McDonald's hamburger cost a mere 15 cents. A first-class stamp cost 4 cents. And a new modest house cost $12,500 to build. At night, we listened to Dick Biondi on WLS in Chicago. So what TV shows premiered in 1961? The Dick Van Dyke Show came out that year. Ben Casey, Dr. Ben Casey, starring Vince Edwards, premiered. Another doctor show, Dr. Kildare, with Richard Chamberlain. Mr. Ed, a TV show about a talking horse. We danced at the Wick in the community building every Saturday night, and we had live bands. This was no karaoke, this was no DJ spinning records, live bands. And kids came from all over the county and Mattoon and Champaign to dance at our Wick. These are the seniors of 1961, and there were 64 of them. The yearbook was dedicated to Esther Kennedy. She passed away that year. She was a social studies teacher. She was also my 4th grade teacher. And this was the faculty. Mr. Hammock was the unit superintendent. Charles Whalen was the principal. Wilma Allen, business ed. Coach William Bukovich, football. Dan Kane, American history. And Miriam Cox, girls PE. This is Joe Myers, science. Don Rumley, boys basketball, and Wendell Schrader, ag. And on the bottom row, Harriet Sluss, Latin and Spanish. Janine Tucker, English. And Dorothy Weaver, English. This is Miss Deere, science. Esther Kennedy, social studies. Dorothy Lionberger, mathematics. Her husband, Warren Lionberger, mathematics. Alberta Magnuson, Business Ed, and Jean Maloney, Industrial Arts. I wanted to say this is Nancy Jo Schrader, but apparently she got married. I'm not sure how to pronounce her married name. I think it's Nancy Wellage. And next to her is Lucille Dickinson, our band director, Carl Court. On the bottom row, Miss Elizabeth Van Boris, Mrs. Jack Downs, speech. Lena Helm, assistant librarian. And our school secretary, Mildred Grubb. This is the student council. These are made up of the class presidents and the student council representatives, and the clubs also had student council representatives. So these are the students that ran the classes and the clubs. These are the leaders of our school. These are the thespians, and Jane Stevens was the president. These were the actors and actresses. This, of course, is the FFA, Future Farmers of America, and Denny Hackett, sitting right in the middle, was the president. They always had these beautiful, beautiful blue jackets with the gold crest on them. And obviously, the FFA is always made up of farm boys. If they didn't graduate and go right into college, they were going to become farmers. Now, as I looked at this and studied it, I recognize several of these guys, and I know that they were farmers, except for this guy right here. This is Paul Donnelly. Paul Donnelly was a city boy. I've never known why Paul was a member of the FFA, but he was for 2 years. These are the future homemakers of America, and the president was Karen Gould. This is our mixed chorus, and what a large chorus it was. We had 80 members. We're as big as the band. We were so big that we had a separate girls' chorus. And we had a boys' chorus. And interestingly enough, 1 year before, there was not a single boy in the chorus. And 1 year later, we had enough boys to make a boys' chorus. This is Linda Summerlot. She was the pianist for the boys' chorus. And I want you to notice this little short guy here, this little short freshman. Look how short he is. You're going to see him later on in this presentation. His name was Michael O'Loughlin. And this is our award-winning TCHS marching band. And this is the Latin Club. And historically, Latin Club was always the biggest club in high school. Even though Miss Sluss only taught Latin 1 or 2 years, once you joined Latin Club, you did not quit. And my friend Bob Wetzel and Bob Felix were the president of Latin Club. So we were a power to behold in the high school. You didn't mess with the Latin Club, no siree. And this was the Spanish Club. And Ronnie Knapp was the president of the Spanish Club. And it's interesting because today in America, 15% of Americans speak Spanish as their native language. When I lived in Florida, I lived in a gated community, and we had a crew, a company that would come in and do all the mowing and the trimming and everything. And unless you spoke Spanish, you didn't know how to talk to any of those gentlemen. So it turns out it was a more practical language than, let's say, Latin, because as far as I know, 0% of Americans speak Latin. This is the debate club, and the president was Doug Green. mostly smart seniors. This is the library club, and my good friend Judy Wright was the president. These ladies help keep our library organized. You know, one of the things you do is in a library is you need to read the stacks. You need to go through all of those books and make sure they are lined up numerically according to the Dewey Decimal System. That's a big job, keeping the books totally organized. These were the multimedia gurus of the school. This is the projectionist club, and my good friend Marcus Bunting was the president. You know, back then we didn't have videotape, we didn't have digital cameras. If a teacher wanted to show a movie, she got a projectionist to go get the 16 millimeter projector and get the film and to thread up the film. And that was a complicated process. That's why we had to have this club. It wasn't something you could just open up the case and you knew how to do it. You needed to be trained. These are the Girls Athletic Association members, and the president was Sandra Manwaring. And when I looked through this, I noticed my good friend Jane Rothgeb, who was a junior, and she's the only junior girl in GAA. And we remembered that 50 years later during the 50th class reunion for my class. We remembered that Jane Rothgeb was in the GAA all 4 years. These are the future teachers of America. And Juanita Hausman was the president of this organization. I don't know how many of these students actually became teachers, but I know 2 of them did because I see them up here on the back row. This is Judy Wright, who was an English teacher and retired as an English teacher teaching in Northern Illinois. And this was Sue Meadows. Sue Meadows eventually taught art and physical education at Tuscola High School. This is the press club. We had a student newspaper, the Old Gold and Black Echoes, and Bob Wilson and Judy Thornton were the co-presidents of the press club. This is the Tea Club. You had to be a varsity letter winner to be a member of the Tea Club. And Dick Etzweiler was the president of the Tea Club that year. This is the varsity football team, coached by William Bukovich. So you may be wondering, what was their record? How well did they do that year? This next picture tells it all. Here they are. Here are our co-captains receiving the Okaw Valley Championship trophy. That's how good they were. Now, this is the junior varsity football team, coached by Coach Rumley. And I want to focus your attention way over here to the left, right here. This young man, number 30. Who is he? He is Michael O'Loughlin. Now, I don't know how tall he was, and I don't know how much he weighed, but I'll tell you this. If there were a trophy given in our high school for the student with the most courage, without a doubt, it would go to Michael O'Loughlin. Because in spite of his small size, my friends, he was out for football. This is the varsity basketball team under Coach Rumley. This is the junior varsity basketball team. Now, I want to ask you a question. Where is the coach? Okay? Point out the coach in this picture. You say you can't find him? Neither could I. So apparently Apparently, these guys were so good, they didn't even need a coach. That's all I can surmise, because there was none listed in the yearbook. This is the track team. 1 year before, there was no track team at Tuscola High School, so I was happy to see this good-looking track team coached by Gene Murray. And these are the varsity cheerleaders: Gerald Welburn, Donna Beard, Kitty Kish, Janet Charnetsky, and Jane Rothgeb. These are the junior varsity cheerleaders: Carol Chaplin, Joyce Newland, Melinda Carroll, Nita Bozart, and Barbara Nuccio. This is a brand new club in Tuscola High School. They call themselves the Tribe, and as you can see, they are all girls. And they were kind of a pep club. They were organized to help support the athletic teams. These were the backups for the cheerleaders. When the cheerleaders led, these girls yelled loud. This obviously is the lunchroom at noon. Organized chaos. That year, the senior class play presented a play called The Red Spider, and Mr. Kane was the director. This is the junior class play. This is part of the crew behind it, and the title of their play was Love is Too Much Trouble. Here are some of the girls that apparently starred in this. Marcia Graham, Jane Rothgeb, and I know this young lady quite well. This was Sue Meadows, and she used to laugh about how her ruby red lips really had the lipstick on, and the eyeshadow was really applied. Of course, you're on a stage with bright spotlights, so you need heavy makeup. But if she were walking along the streets like this, I'd have to call her a painted hussy. Well, let me tell you something about this particular painted hussy. This play was in November of 1961, late November. 48 years, 9 months, and 5 days later, this painted hussy, at the age of 65, would become my wife. The DAR award that year went to Carolyn Ross. The SAR award went to Carl Court. The Betty Crocker Homemaking Award went to Ellen Spencer. This is something that was new. Tuscola began to honor the students with academic excellence, and these are the students that received the high honors. A new club, a prestigious club, a club everybody would want to be in. And these are the students, freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors, who received honors. And these guys won an award as well. What do you think they won? The answer is the Safe Driving Award. And these were award winners as well. And they won Boys State and Girls State. And these girls are the sextet. singers. This is the homecoming royalty. And reading from top left, we have Doug Green, Denny Hackett, Kitty Kish, Juanita Hausman, and from the first row left to right, Bill Kleiss, Tom Mercer, Donna Hausman and Jim Perry, who were the king and queen from the year before, Jerry Little, and our new king and queen that year, the king was Rex Bridges, and the queen was Kathleen Boylston. Congratulations. These are the queen candidates, and they're dressed and ready to get on those convertibles and ride in the homecoming parade. And these are the boy king candidates, and likewise, they're all lined up and ready to get into those convertibles and ride in the homecoming parade. This is the first place winner in the homecoming parade float competition. And it says Unity Beat 'em Warriors, and it was done by the FFA Club. And this little beater spun around and round like a mixer did. So this was the first place winners. I want to point out the second place winners. This was my class, the juniors. This huge clown, and our slogan was, "We don't clown with victory." Now, folks, I want to tell you, when we built this, we were just sure we were going to win first prize. I mean, look at this thing. It's beautiful. Big clown with this uplifted arm holding balloons and a big face. Look at these shoes and his arm supporting. It was complicated to build him. But it was, our junior girls, let's give credit due where it is. The junior girls came up with this idea. And let me tell you, folks, when we didn't win, there were some unhappy junior girls, don't you know? Oh, my Lord. And they were saying, those FFA boys, the only reason they won is because that stupid beater went round and round. That's the only reason they won. So we were bitter for a few weeks after that, but apparently we got over it and got on with our lives. The Library Club. It's a float, but it's not a float. I'm curious. This car obviously belonged to somebody in the high school. Would somebody please tell me who owned this car? This car ended up in several homecoming parades. This is the first one I could find a picture of. So that's my question to you. Whose car was this? At the end of the year in May, we had the prom. And that year they crowned a Prince Charming, and that was Doug Green. And we crowned a Cinderella, and that was Kay Townsend. The variety show that year was a play, Bull in a China Shop, and it was directed by Wilma Allen. The janitor was a very familiar face, Chub Corey, and he was the father of two of our students. Interestingly enough, I was doing a little research. Back in the 1890s, I was looking at the pay for teachers and staff. It turns out in Tuscola High School in 1890, the teachers were paid $35 a month. The janitor was paid $50 a month. Okay, quiz time. I'm going to show you some pictures. You tell me what they are. These were girls that called themselves the Globetrotters, and they apparently won first place. What I want to know is, what did they win first place in? I'm guessing these are GAA girls. What did they win? Here's the second place winners, the Doggy Daddies. Same question. I assume they're in the same sport. So what did they win second place in? What four varsity football players won all-state honors that year? You ready? Here we go. Our co-captains, Carl Court, all conference, all area, all OCAL, little all-state, big all-state honorable mention. Our other co-captain, Doug Green, same thing, all OCAL, all area, all conference, little all-state, big all-state honorable mention. Just think about it. You know, back then we didn't separate the high schools into 4 or 5 divisions like they do now. So to be named Big All-State, that is really something. Those were 2 of the members. How about our quarterback, Tom Mercer? All conference, all area, all OCAL, little all-state, big all-state honorable mention. And we had one more award winner, our fullback, Lloyd Anderson. All area, little all-state, big all-state honorable mention. So almost 40% of our starting offensive lineup were all-state winners. No wonder we won all-call championships. Look at the leadership we had. And this is the NBA champion New York Knicks. Wait a minute. That's Bill Bukovich. That's the principal, Charlie Whalen. That's Gene Murray. No. This is not the NBA champion. I'm sorry. So my question is, why is this all-star basketball team dressed? You notice they all have the same jerseys, but they don't have the same shorts. Kind of a tacky outfit, if you ask me. Anyway, what was the occasion? Why was this team pulled together? What was going on in Tuscola High School that year that we needed this outstanding all-star basketball team, huh? And who is this hippie riding on the back of this convertible in the homecoming parade? I'll give you a hint. She's a teacher. So if you know, leave it in the comments. We had a set of twins. What were their names? And by the way, those twins were the co-editors of our yearbook. Carolyn and Marilyn Corey and Jane Harris. These are the 3 co-editors of the yearbook that year. And here's the rest of the yearbook crew, half of them. Here's the other half. And Miss Sluss was the yearbook advisor that year. Miss Sluss taught for over 48 years. So imagine, she had seen a lot of yearbooks put together, my friends. The Best Dress Award that year went to Jerry Snyder and Jerry Little. The Best Dancers, Pat Consor and Dan Gould. Oh my Lord, do I remember Dan. You know, it was our tradition, after you got through with lunch, we would all go up on the catwalks, and when we had a little turntable record player there, and the girls would bring records, and they'd play records, and they would dance. It was basically 99% was girls dancing with girls, with one exception, Dan Gould. I guarantee you Dan was out there dancing every dance with some girl. So if there was ever an appropriate award, Dan Gould as the best dancer is certainly deserving. Most likely to succeed, Bob Wilson and Jane Harris. And Bob did succeed in what he wanted to do in life. He became a Christian church minister. The most musical, that was Dan Lee and Kay Townsend. The Best Natured, that was Fred Holste and LaDonna Stickle. My Sister Sonia ended up marrying Jack Stickle. The Most Athletic, that was Sandra Manwaring and Tom Mercer. The Shyest, that was Mary O'Brien and Rex Bridges. The Most Intellectual, that was Carl Court and Judy Thornton. The Friendliest, that was Doug Green and Kathleen Boylston. Kathleen's father, Dr. Boylston, was my family physician for many, many years. And many years later, when I went to Eastern Illinois University, Dr. Boylston was also on the staff there. The Friendliest, that was Bill Alexander and Kay Donnelly. So that is your senior class of 1961. I'd like to close this video with a song that we all were dancing to back in 1961. This was Del Shannon's #1 hit, Runaway. Now I've got this fancy schmancy Tyros 5 keyboard, and I can play 1,500 different instruments in it. So I sat down for about a week, about 3 hours every night for 7 days. And what I did is I played all of the instruments in this song Runaway, and I recorded them into this. So what you're going to hear is not some pre-recorded song. It's me playing all of the instruments. And what I will do in the video is I will sing and play the melody. Now, I ain't no Del Shannon. I'm 82 years old. I can't hit all of those high notes I used to hit back when I was a first tenor. So I'll just sing a little bit of the first verse, and then I'll play the rest of the melody. So think back. It's 1961. It's Saturday night. We're in the community building, and some local rock and roll band comes in, and they start playing Del Shannon's Runaway.
As I walk along, I wonder what went wrong with our love, a love that was so true. And as I still walk on, I think of the things we done together while our hearts were young. Friends, Runaway, 1961. That's what we were dancing to. You know, many, many years later when I became a father and I had a teenage daughter, I used to tell my daughter Allison, you know, we invented rock and roll. And yet my generation, we're the kids that invented rock and roll, don't you know? So I want to thank you for watching my video. And if you were in the class of 1961, leave us some comments. Let us know what became of your life. Or if it were your parents or your grandparents, we want to know. And in closing, be well, my friends.